Video game collecting is one of the most satisfying and easiest hobbies to get into. Unlike something like coin collecting or card collecting, which require a lot of research and can get pretty pricey, video game collecting is much easier to get into in comparison. Because all you really need to get started is have an interest in games and to buy games and consoles, and you're already set. And video games are pretty common products in brick and mortar stores. And this makes it a very easy hobby to get into at a base level. And for most video game fans, video game collecting isn't really something that is planned out or strategized. You just kind of look around one day and realize that you have a lot of games. That's what makes video game collecting so much fun. You barely have to try. And you can collect so many different types of games and consoles. You can collect new games and consoles. This doesn't really take much effort. All you have to do is go to your local Target, Walmart, Best Buy, or GameStop, and you can buy the game then and then there you go. You have officially added one game to your collection. Sure, in this case you may have to venture into the outside world, and in some cases you may have to get the attention of a store employee so they can unlock a glass case of games for you. But honestly, I think it's worth the mild social anxiety you'll get from that situation if you get a new game out of it. Or you could just skip that whole going outside thing and buy games from a store's online website, or just buy the games off Amazon. The thing is, new games can be pretty pricey, with them averaging around $60, with some games being less than $60, like more indie titles, or third-party published games, with some games being more than $60, with some newer AAA games. But that's more general pricing for games that are mass-produced and developed and published by big companies. But there are publishing companies like Limited Run Games and Super Rare Games that focus on limited releases of games. These companies focus on selling physical versions of what were once digital-only indie games, physical versions of old games on new systems, re-releases of old games on their original platforms, and even new games on old platforms. The gimmick of companies like this is that they sell a limited amount of these physical releases, and then once they're out, that's it. If you want their games firsthand, you have to go and buy them on their personal sites. When these games first sell, they go for around $25 to $60 for the standard edition of a game. But once you have to buy these games secondhand from places like eBay and Facebook Marketplace, that's when the prices increase dramatically. Most likely when you buy limited run and super rare published games from places like eBay and Facebook Marketplace, you can expect the price to have doubled. And as a whole, the games that these companies publish aren't anything to write home about. The indie games that they publish are kind of just unremarkable, and their physical ports of older games are kind of unnecessary because they're still available digitally elsewhere, and that's like 75% of the types of games that they publish. Oh, and also these companies take forever to ship the games to you. Like if you buy a game from these companies, it could take anywhere from 3 to 12 months to get the game. So if you want to buy games from these companies, I recommend that you don't. There are plenty of other and better games that get released in retail stores. Now what about older or more retro games and systems? Now these games are not available in most retail stores, so you probably have to go to a store that exclusively sells retro games. But odds are it's going to be a crapshoot on whether they have good prices or a good selection of games. Because most of the time these retro game stores are not up to date on what their games and systems are worth, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on if the prices are cheaper or more expensive. And also, if you're walking into a retro game store for the first time, you're kind of walking in blind. That could be fine if you're just browsing. But if you're looking for something specific, you may be out of luck. That's where buying retro games and systems online comes into play. And I recommend buying your retro games and systems on Facebook Marketplace and eBay. On these sites, I feel like they have a much better selection of games and systems compared to any other retro game store. I also feel like overall, the prices are much more accurate. Now, if you have no idea what you should be paying for an older game or system, I recommend checking out PriceCharting.com. PriceCharting.com uses recent eBay sales to give you an average of what you should be paying for a certain game or system. This is not the most accurate way to determine the average price of a game or system, but it works well enough to give you a ballpark estimate. Now, if you're one of those psychos that wants to collect sealed games or graded games, I can help you. Now that we've gone over what you can collect, let's go over what should you collect. And the answer to the question, what games should I collect, is whatever the hell you want. There are 100 plus game systems with thousands of games for each system. If you're just starting out seriously collecting, I recommend collecting for the systems that you already have. I recommend buying new systems later once you have a sizable collection for the systems you already have. But if you have no game systems whatsoever and are looking for a place to start, I recommend starting with the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch is a readily available system in most stores. It is highly versatile because you can play it in both handheld mode and in docked mode on your TV. It has a ton of games for all ages. It has a whole bunch of different types of games. It has platformers, both 2D and 3D, open world games. It has RPGs, point and click games, puzzle games, racing games, fighting games, shooting games, and much more. If you're looking for more consoles to collect for, I would personally recommend the original Xbox, the PS2, the Xbox 360, and the PS3. I like all these consoles quite a bit, and they're all pretty affordable to collect for right now. It also helps that these consoles have massive libraries of games. With that being said, I hope this guide helps you aspiring collectors out there get your start.